Well, Russia's forces continue to threaten Ukraine's capital, Kiev. And for more on that, we're joined by our defence analyst, Michael Clark. Michael, let's have a look at our first map, shall we? This is Kiev. What is going on at the moment?
Yes, I mean, Kiev has suffered some what look like rocket attacks, which are extremely destructive. But the nature of the battle here is really revolving around some of the fierce fighting that's going on at places like Irpin, in the Obolon district, and on the other side at places like Brovary. And the reason that these places are important for the battle for Kiev is the distance they are from the city centre. Because if the Russians get inside that area, then they are within 15 or 18 miles of the city centre, and then they can bring their battlefield artillery to play, their howitzers, which would make quite a difference.
And what sort of weapons are they? What kind of damage can they do?
Yeah, well, howitzers they look like tanks. They're based on a tank chassis, but they've got a pretty big gun on them. So the guns are 152mm caliber guns. They're pretty fierce. They can fire 6 or 8 rounds a minute. Old-fashioned stuff, old Cold War stuff. They're not all that accurate, but they certainly work. And if they can bring in their howitzers and surround 2 or 3 parts of the city with them, then they can threaten to reduce the city from the outside in a matter of a week or 2 weeks, whatever it is.
Let's take a look at the bigger picture, shall we, and talk about the air war. What at the moment are the basic dynamics of that?
Well, the nature of the air war is that both sides have got quite a lot of aircraft in theatre. They find it quite difficult to engage together because the Russians have got to come from bases inside Russia. The Ukrainians have got to fly from western Ukraine, which is quite long ranges for them, and all of their aircraft are dispersed in western Ukraine. So we expected the Russians to clear out the Ukrainian air system from the very beginning. We thought they'd do it within 48 hours, but actually the Ukrainians are still flying. It looks as if they've got about 50-odd aircraft of the 120 they started with still in the air, which is pretty astonishing.
Yeah, why hasn't Russia, with its superior numbers, started to dominate the airspace?
Well, there's probably a lot of reasons for that. There seems to be. One is that Russian pilots only do about 100 hours in the cockpit flying every year. NATO pilots do at least 200 hours. The Russians don't seem to work on combined air operations, so they don't do the complex air operations that you need to do if you're going to suppress enemy air defences and control the air. Again, NATO pilots do that all the time. All of their exercises are about combined air operations. And so the Russians are flying, good aircraft, actually very top-of-the-range aircraft, but they're flying them only in 1s and 2s. They're flying at night. They're flying low because they fear air defences, and they seem to fear some of the aircraft which the Ukrainians have still got in the air. So there's a lot of reasons, but I have to say, military analysts are still scratching their heads as to why have the Russians not made more of their natural air superiority, but they haven't.
There's also been, as we understand it, some successful operations by the Ukrainian forces on the ground.
Yeah. The Ukrainian Marines, it was a classic attack. They attacked the airbase, the airbase in Russian hands, just outside Mykolaiv, and they destroyed at least 30 helicopters. That's confirmed, and some more vehicles, and they seem to have got away. It was a classic piece of commando work. And then yesterday, they created an attack on the airbase near Kherson, and it's not clear yet whether it was artillery or it was air attack by the Ukrainians, but they destroyed about another 15 helicopters and a lot of vehicles. It seems that the Russians are not protecting their forward air bases very well. They're leaving their helicopters in a line, they're leaving stuff out, and the Ukrainians are taking the opportunities to actually get hold of a lot of air assets, as we call them, on the ground. So they're destroying a lot of stuff while it's already on the ground. They've done really well.